So you can connect with the chakras and use them as a complementary treatment to physical healing, to psychological personal work, or spiritual awakening. And it's kind of the center of working holistically.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Houghton, and today we're joined by Lisa Erickson, an energy worker specializing in women's energetics, sexual trauma healing, meditation, and contemplative chakra practices. She is the author of Chakra Empowerment for Women and the Art and Science of Meditation. Lisa aids individuals through major life transitions, chronic illness, and trauma healing, with a particular focus on women's issues. Lisa is certified in mindfulness meditation instruction and trauma sensitivity and has trained in a variety of Kundalini and energy healing modalities. In today's conversation, Lisa shares about how we can all engage with our energy body, and she walks us through how to begin using chakra practices to start retraining our response patterns to allow for genuine healing. Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Julie, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm really excited for you to share. I already am like, there's so many directions I want to go. But I want to learn a little bit. I want listeners to kind of understand a bit of your journey and how I call it the wellness space because I believe the work you are doing it is in the wellness space, and rightfully so. But how did you get to the work that you're currently doing?
You know, I really have two big moments in my life, and I think that's often what we find, right? We have these big turning points in someone's life. And in my case, they were both health issues that arose. The first was right out of college. I was actually working in tech in New York City, so not at all related to my current field, 22 years old and having stomach and headaches that no one could diagnose, right? And so this is 40 years ago, and very unusually for the time, a doctor, after I've gone through all these other diagnostic processes, is like, well, maybe you should look at meditation, which was really not that common at the time. Yeah. And I happened to end up in a meditation class that was chakra-based or energy center-based, which is only one form of meditation. It's where I ended up, though. And it really had a dramatic impact on me. So that started, I continued my corporate career for a decade, but I had this practice that was developing and studies. But then after the birth of my first daughter, I had a major health issue and was hospitalized, digestive, C. diff, all sorts of things. I won't go into all the details, gallbladder, C. diff.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I'd already been studying energy medicine, but I had to dive in another way. And again, I found that what I found, both from a stress management perspective and actual energy medicine teachings, had a profound impact on my healing journey. And that really turned everything. And 5 years later, I had transitioned my career to what I've now been doing for 18 years. So,
which is amazing, and obviously continued to grow and add all kinds of different modalities into your work. I always love to how just really start simple. You mentioned doing chakra meditation. So I would love to talk listeners through a little bit of just basics of, what are chakras, and does somebody have to be deep in energy work to benefit from understanding how they can move their own energy?
Well, I'll answer that last question first, because no, you do not. And that is so my mission in the world, that this is like our physical body, our energy body, our subtle body. It's like our physical body. It's ours, it's our birthright. It's like a technology sitting there for us to learn to use. And you can engage with it at a lot of different levels, right? You don't have to be a pro athlete, you
Right.
know? So I think really the way I like to describe the chakras is that they are the organs in our energy anatomy. And they're the major energy centers in our energy anatomy. And what is our energy body or energy anatomy? It's like this middle layer between our physical body, our psyche, and our spirit. So you can connect with the chakras and use them as a complementary treatment to physical healing, to psychological personal work, or spiritual awakening. And it really it spans that whole gambit. It's really holistic, and that it's kind of the center of working holistically. And the kind of certain daily life level of chakra work is really like mindfulness. You're tuning in, but to energy, and you're perhaps focusing on a certain part of your body associated with an energy center. And it's just kind of another level of mindfulness.
Which I love. I know you saw the big smile, in so many different ways, which is great because we all hear things differently. Mindfulness comes up. I'm not even talking as a practice. I think so many people with autoimmunity at a point, it's a survival skill in the beginning, but at a point they just disconnect from what's going on in their bodies. And whether it's mindful eating or, it's listening to tuning into our bodies. And I am definitely not opposed. I'm not discouraging a mindfulness practice either. But even just that, like tapping in, I think in today's world in general, in the, busy gets the gold medal mentality, and then add onto it if there's chronic illness or struggles, that we just, people are tuned out. And so that's one of the things that I think is so powerful about your message, is because there is so much we actually can support on our own if we actually learn, like you said, all these resources that we already have within us. So I love that idea of, and glad that I don't need to be a master to
Exactly.
benefit, right?
Well, and our minds are so overstimulated these
Yeah.
days. So many of us are very, very busy here. And that means we are disconnected often from what's going on in our body. But in the meantime, our body reacts to what's going on,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Stress impacts us in many ways. And so just even learning to drop into the body, and then energy is just another layer of that. And for some people, especially if someone has developed a coping mechanism, and this is common with trauma and with chronic disease, when someone is in a lot of physical discomfort, there can be patterns of disassociating from the body as a coping mechanism. And what I found is that sometimes connecting energetically is the pathway back into the body for some people.
I
It's
love
actually
that.
easier than, say, taking up yoga, which everyone tells you to do, right?
Right.
Or whatever. And I love yoga, but for some
Right.
people, the energy
Not
is
everybody
easier
does.
than going right to the physical. Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I love that you said that. And so here we go. All right. It's time, it's time to just really dig right in, because you mentioned, just like with trauma, but so often with autoimmunity, there is trauma, right? It's the trauma tends to be either one of the triggers or precursor, or like you said, or the physical challenges. I mean, those create their own kind of trauma. So
Well, and the medical process is medical
oh
trauma, right?
gosh, yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's all in your
Yeah.
head. Yeah. Um, so like, to me, you can't separate it out.
Yeah.
And I love, I'm a coach. I love stacking. I love doing one thing that's going to have many different impacts, or putting things together that don't add time to a practice. And so we're talking, you can't heal the body without also working on the trauma and vice versa. Like we're like you said, holistic humans. And so I love that you brought it up very diplomatically, and I'll take the hard line and say, you know, we all have trauma, however you want to define it, however, and I was just having this conversation with a client this week. This many years out from my physical challenges, I still get triggered when I feel certain things in my body. The first place my nervous system goes is panic of where, it puts me back where I was, thank God I can just say, I notice it, I catch it, and that's not my presence. And I have tools and practices. So I feel like, chicken, egg, we can't separate them out anyway. But I love this idea of, let's talk a little bit about how like energy work as the way in, because it's to me the same, whether it's physical pain or challenges or trauma one is aware of or not.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because sometimes you might not be aware.
Yeah.
And then there's a growing field of like, do we carry ancestral trauma, right? And what do we carry forward from our family? And so sometimes you don't know the cause.
Yeah.
The starting point, it's interesting to me because the chakras, there's different mappings, but in general, the main chakras in all the systems move up the center of the body from lower to upper, kind of paralleling your spine from tailbone to crown. And that first chakra at the tailbone, the base of the body, sometimes also associated with the feet, is your foundation. And so that's where I would always start. And per both dealing with illness and trauma, what it represents, it represents a lot of things, but this chakra represents, or what we're trying to cultivate by working with it, is a feeling of safety in the body.
Yes.
And that is the foundation of the house for any healing work.
I love that. I love the how you always put things so relatable. It's like
good.
Yeah. Well,
I've worked on that over the years, actually. But
you can't physically heal in a sympathetic state, right? You need to have safety. You need to be in a parasympathetic state. Physiologically, forget all of the other in order to heal. And so that makes perfect sense, because nobody would knowingly build a house on a bad foundation. So why do all that work? So that's amazing.
Yeah. And that's really where I start with people. And it can, depending on someone's relationship to their body and their level of focus, sometimes focusing low in the body like that is very, very challenging. So if so, I might start at the heart instead and move down. But in general, if possible, like we're always going to start with focus around the tailbone and different visualizations around light there, energy there. Visualizations of energy coming up from the earth and kind of holding you. I work a lot visually. If people are not visually, then we work with a feeling, even a memory.
Yeah.
Is there somewhere in your childhood that was safe? Was there a corner of your room? Was there your grandmother's house? What was it? Can we try to bring in that feeling of just, I'm 100% safe and secure in this moment, and practice it so that it becomes more present in your body? That is a practice that can aid someone just immeasurably, doing that regularly.
I can feel just how, and I love that you have, different approaches, as we are all wired different, and we're in different places in our journey.
Yeah.
And so and I've been working, luckily working on myself for a long time. Yeah. And for me, like, the visualizing is so much easier than the memories and the going back. And so there is always a way forward and through. And that's why I believe the work that you're doing is so important, because most of us don't just wake up and say, okay, now I'm going to start, doing energy work on myself, and they need a guide, a mentor, a teacher, a leader to take them through. And I think I can. I really encourage listeners, like if this conversation is new to you, just even start with that exercise and you will be amazed.
Yeah.
It's a,
And these access methods, yeah, visual, memory, or affirmations are kind of the three that I find are the most accessible, but people vary. Some people love affirmations, just focusing on red light at their tailbone and saying, I am safe, I am secure. Other people are like, oh no, that just totally hokey to me. I like the visualization. I like not having words. And
Mhm.
so it really is individual. And I think that's so important for people to know because otherwise they go, oh, this isn't for me. The first
Right.
thing doesn't work, oh, this isn't for me.
It's like
That's yeah.
meditation. I'm a bad meditator. I don't,
Right. If you try it once, my mind was busy. No, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's everybody's minds.
That's how the mind is. Or like, I always say this, people say, well, what's the best kind of meditation or the best
Yeah,
kind of breathing? I'm like, the one that resonates with you that you'll do. Like there is
exactly.
no, magic recipe other than something that you'll actually do, and that feels right for you. So I love that you're, just will give people that. We need to give ourselves grace, and most of us, especially for listeners that are in the heat of it and haven't, really gained a lot of ground in their healing journey yet, grace is your best friend. And so and
Yeah, we're
that
so
also
hard
is a
on ourselves.
practice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of us are so hard on ourselves. And so
Yeah.
it is like, oh, okay, that didn't work. Being able to frame it as that's not the right approach for me. Be
Right.
curious about what else might work, not, oh, nothing's going to help me. And I do think, especially with chronic illness, that's at some point the message that many people
Yeah.
absorb. There is nothing that will help me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried this, I tried that, and I the whole, basis for the podcast is because there isn't one path.
Yep.
And I do remember 9, 10 years into my decline with my rheumatoid arthritis, thinking I was doing everything because my perspective was so limited at the time that, I took every medication, took and failed every medication they tried. And
Mhm.
I thought I was doing everything. And so this is why we have these conversations, because everything is infinite as far as the different approaches that we can take, and modalities that we can combine. And what my practice is today, my practice is totally different than it was even 5 years ago.
Mhm.
My life is different than it was 5 years ago, and so um, anyway, that's the infinite possibility.
Yeah, finding that individualized path and really exploring it with curiosity and experimentation.
Yes.
That empowerment that you're the own expert on what's going to
Yes.
work for you. You go to other experts, subject matter experts, to try
Right.
things out, but in the end, you're the one. Yeah. And even true of medication, right? You give it a try and some work, some don't, and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that, I want to highlight that you're the expert doesn't mean that you know what's going to work.
Right.
It just means that when you check in, you know what's resonating, and you can tap into that innate intelligence to lead you in the right direction,
Yeah.
or turn from something that's not
Yeah.
working or serving you as
Well,
well.
and so often that's been work I've needed to do with people that are going through the medical journey, whether it's immune or cancer is another thing. I have a lot of people. This kind of work is complementary treatment. The medical journey itself and empowering the throat chakra to be able to speak and say, look, I had all these side effects. Is that normal? Is it worth it? Is there anything we can do?
Right.
Or, you said this wasn't going to hurt, but it actually did for me. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? And, like that kind of thing, because people will be so shy about or fearful of speaking up and engaging
Yes.
in that way. Yeah.
And that is one of the I'm not smiling. It's, those of us with thyroid issues are leaning in. What? Learn to use my voice?
Exactly, because
Yeah,
that's the throat chakra. Yes. Yes.
yeah. And so, and you don't have to read a guidebook to be like, oh, I have this, that means that. Like, just,
Yeah.
and the beautiful thing is we can all be evolving and growing and practicing. Um, and so I love the I gave you my opinion, and I want to ask your opinion because you are the expert in this field. I jumped to an assumption that something that works on trauma and works on physical healing, that meant that you don't have to like go into, identify your trauma, know what it is, go in with the intention. If somebody said, I want to work with you, do we have to do scary trauma work in that sense? Like,
Yeah.
just because that's my opinion doesn't mean that's accurate. So,
Well, no, and in fact, because who I work with or the way that I work, it's a specific point in someone's trauma journey. I think there is a place, perhaps, often, because I often work with sexual trauma survivors, and it's not uncommon with that kind of trauma for it to have been repressed or buried, someone not to
right.
have spoken about it for 10, 20, 30 years, right?
Hmm.
And that there is a phase of that journey where it is about talking and recovering some of that memory and speaking, right?
Yes.
And I will do that, but that's not my expertise. That more falls in the line of a talk therapist or
Right.
more emotional counseling. But then there comes a point when you're dealing with the patterns, that experience, the imprints, how it impacted you, the
Mm.
survival mechanisms that you developed, the emotional patterns you developed to protect yourself, essentially, right? Which could be disconnecting in certain ways,
Mhm.
fight, flight,
Yeah.
fawn. We have all these. Fawn is then develops into a people pleasing pattern. Fight develops
Oh, can't
into
imagine.
anger and walls as self protection, right?
Uh-huh.
Flight develops into disassociating, disconnecting from any kind of conflict. And so, whatever the pattern is, that's where I'm usually meeting someone. How's that pattern stored in your psyche, in your energy
Mm.
body? What can we do to rewrite it? That little root chakra thing I was just talking about, that is about trying to create and build a new feeling of safety and security in the body as a new default, as opposed to hypervigilance, right? But it takes time to overwrite patterns of hypervigilance. But so I am not usually working so much with the memories. I have certain practices where we might do that, but I'm working more with no, what happens when you know, need to have a difficult conversation with your boss, right?
Hmm.
Or someone says something that triggers you, what happens? We're working with that moment in your body and how can we help you shift it and gradually rewriting to new patterns. I always say to people, it's more like physical therapy
I
than
love it.
surgery.
Yeah.
It's more like physical therapy. You have to remap how your body moves as
Hmm.
opposed to like getting a tumor out in surgery, right? It's
Right.
more like we're rewriting your psyche and your energy body patterns.
Yeah. And they are rewritable.
And they are rewritable. That's the good news. Sometimes it
Yes.
feels like slow work, often
Yes.
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
It's like
But
any part of the healing journey, right? It's never a straight line, and it's usually has some surprises in there, and definitely some backslides for sure.
but it
But
is
we
possible.
learn more and more,
Yeah.
with like
Yeah.
that. To me, it is often where the gold is like, okay, why a step back here,
Yeah.
and then that just
Yeah. What
helps.
happened to
Yeah,
make that happen? Oh, that's new
yeah.
information. Yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
that's interesting that that triggered you. It's new information. Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, amazing. I have like 8,000 like, oh, this is, so you gave us a practice, and how often, if somebody's like just totally starting out, they're leaning in, they're like, wow, this is fascinating. Later, we're going to tell them how to get in touch with you. But as a practice, are there rules? Is it, has to be daily, should be XYZ?
Yeah. I really like we have these levels, like
Uh-huh.
obviously more is better, but I work with so many women, and so I definitely have a no guilt policy because the
Yeah,
challenge for most women is overwhelm, right?
yeah, yeah,
And always feeling torn between self-care, family care, work, etc. So, yeah, so I think the easiest place to start is to link it to a daily habit. So I'll be like, can you do this in the shower each day?
yeah,
Can you do this as you brush your teeth every day? And we'll talk through what that might look like, what you might be doing. Ideally, then it would be layering in a few days a week of actually doing it as a formal sitting meditation for 10 to 20 minutes. That's a big step for some people, very attainable for others. So we start with kind of linking it to a daily habit piece, and then we might move into, can we move into this is self-care time, 10 or 20 minutes twice a week. Depends where we're starting from.
yeah,
Someone may have an existing meditation practice, and then we're just taking some of that time and saying, okay, let's make part of that energy based. So yeah, it's always about meeting someone where they're at.
yeah. And I love that I just our approaches are so aligned. You can see with certain people, and I could feel it physically when you were talking about like for the people that this is all new, right? And they haven't been in touch with what's going on in their body, and to just even say, okay, twice a week, 10 to 20 minutes, like stress response right away. Like, so I love that you have the attach it to something you're already doing. Doesn't need to be a big thing. I always say you can't use the tool if you haven't created the practice. Because
Mhm.
I have people that'll tell me that with, if we're talking about like a breathing exercise. Oh yeah, well I do it when I get stressed. And I'm like, how? You haven't even ever
Yeah.
exercised it yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Haven't built that muscle up. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
like that whole physical therapy. The idea is, you have to rework the way you walk because your hips are out of
Yeah.
alignment and that caused your back injury, right? But you have to do the exercises in physical therapy. And so then that means when you're out walking on the street, you'll start walking differently,
Yeah.
right? But you
So
can't just start walking differently.
yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Right. You're not going to just say, okay, tomorrow
Yeah.
I'm going to
All of a
start
sudden,
walking differently.
this pattern I've had for 30 years is
Yeah.
gone. Yeah.
I love it. It's amazing. So what are you finding and well, can you run us through, not run, can you walk us
Walk.
evenly
Mhm.
through the chakras and just whatever comes up for you is important for people to just, to give them an idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I will mention the glands because you mentioned the thyroid. Each chakra is linked to certain psychological states and energies, but also to physical parts of the body. So
Yes,
I'll kind of just touch on each because that can gives you clues as to where you may start,
I
right?
love that. Hmm.
Yeah. So we talked about the root chakra, and
Hmm.
I use the tailbone, very base of the spine is where we focus on for this. And it's linked to kind of from a psychological perspective, feeling safe in the body, feeling relaxed, secure, calm in the body, that feeling, and grounded, like fully present. When we talk about those basic mindfulness of exercises of say, like, name three sounds that you hear or three
Right.
sights. To do that, you have to be present here in the moment. That's grounding, and that's linked to the root chakra. Physically, it is linked to the immune system.
Hmm.
And the gland it's linked to is the adrenals.
Hmm.
So this one is a foundational one for physical health.
Yes.
Like we talked about already, foundation of the house. And stop me at any point. Otherwise, I'll just walk through them all. But
Okay.
yeah, if you want to spend more time on one. The sacral, I work with it, and there are different mappings around this in the pelvic bowl. So it's really between the hip bones, you might say. For women, it's really the cervic uterus space. And this is linked to fluidity, the water
Mm.
element. Each of these chakras also linked to an element. The root is earth. The water element, it's linked to adaptability, fluidity, often creativity, right? Because it's
Mm.
that muse energy, sexuality and sensuality, always also linked to all of those. And it's linked to our reproductive glands. So for men, the prostate, for women, the ovaries, and the reproductive system. Um, And of course, hormones are, all the endocrines, all the glands so interlinked, right? We
Sure.
can't really talk about any of these separate from each other,
Right.
just like you can't talk about the chakras separate from each other.
Right.
Uh, the next, I work at the navel. Some people consider the third chakra, they like to focus higher up in the solar plexus. I prefer to focus at the bottom of that area. It rules the whole stomach area no matter what, like from
Okay.
rib cage to navel. I like to focus at the bottom. A lot of Eastern traditions, this is like a center of power, sometimes called the hara. It has to do with that, our sense of personal power, will, determination, executive function, boundaries.
Mm.
So a lot
What?
for there. Yeah. Boundaries. Yeah. Big topic for me. Big topic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And executive function too. Like it's also linked to the mental body. So although we think of like, oh, busyness mind, that must be linked to this chakra. No, no, no. It's actually
Mhm.
linked down. And it's so
Okay.
interesting. It's linked to the digestive system, the whole digestive system, right? Often called our second brain, right?
Right. Or is
Our
it the
gut.
first? I think
Yeah,
we need.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
some of them body it often feels like the first, right? Especially if you're having issues there. And it's linked to the pancreas gland. Then, of course, the heart, center of the system, linked to all the things you might think, love, compassion, balance, relationships, but self-compassion as well, self-worth.
Yeah.
And it's linked, heart and lungs is the physical link, but it's linked also, the gland is the heart because the heart is not only an organ, it also produces endocrine. So it's the gland associated with the heart chakra. And obviously, this one is really central, linked to the breath, right? A big part of
Mhm.
so many mindfulness and somatic modalities. Then we have the throat. And I like to focus up at the vocal cord, some like lower down here linked to speech for one thing, right? But
Yeah.
really, it's about our ability to express ourselves and also hear. It's the whole communication loop. And it's really about authenticity because what is speech but like, how do I get my inside out?
Right.
I understand the outside in. So it's about authenticity. So, for example, if someone has big people pleasing tendencies in order to stay safe, feel safe,
Hmm.
they speak in terms of what everyone wants to hear.
Hmm.
We may be working here a lot, with that idea of, oh, what is authentic speech? What do you actually feel and how do you
Right.
get that out? What do you
Yeah.
actually need? Right. So that huge pattern, often linked to boundaries as well with the navel.
Yeah. Again, there's nothing in isolation, right?
No,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
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 And like I said, people pleasing, usually it's a mechanism to try to feel safe or try to feel self-worth.
Right, right.
So then
And
it needs to go
typically
in root.
boundaries
Yeah.
are, not real clear either or
Yeah, there's no boundaries because really you're
yeah.
like always sensing what does what everybody want from me. So your
Yeah.
whole energy body is tuned into what is everybody else feeling as opposed
Hmm.
to protecting your own space and feelings,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the third eye. So this is about knowing and wisdom and intuition, but kind of beyond words. So I said the whole mental busyness thing, that's actually linked to centering your navel chakra. This is more about tapping into this other level of knowing. This other level of knowing what's right for you, your wisdom beyond the busyness. And it's linked to the pituitary gland. Some say pineal, the crown and third eye are pineal and pituitary. The throat, of course, is thyroid. I didn't mention that. But yeah, the pituitary and pineal. I work with the third eye as pituitary and the crown as pineal. Some switch that. But
Okay.
bottom line is these are our two kind of regulatory glands in terms of sleep and dopamine and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then the crown is linked to faith and it is linked to spiritual interest, but really it's linked to our sense of values, which some of us get from a spiritual or religious tradition, and some of us might find in a more secular way. But it's linked to having a sense of knowing your own values and aligning your life with those values.
Mm.
It's really what the crown is about. So that's
So,
kind of the whole picture from body to spirit, right? Is kind of,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I love it. I just love the way you just make it so accessible, right? And welcoming with the language you use, with the way you explain, the I love I haven't heard it put that way, knowing your own values. because that's everybody,
Mhm. Exactly.
can if they ever choose to dive into that work. So, and it is interesting. I know you said like tap in, like, if you're feeling something and maybe that's your starting place,
Mhm.
with the codicil, that like the foundation is always the
Mhm.
foundation. It's, I would imagine many listeners, if not all of them, are going to hear, like every.
I need every single one.
Well,
Yeah.
and or if there's somebody who's been doing a lot of work on themselves for a long time and this isn't totally new to them, I love the connections of, there's nobody that at some point in their autoimmune journey hasn't had adrenal challenges. I guarantee you that happened before you were ever even diagnosed, right? Like, so it's again, it's just like we're holistic, whole humans. You can't just be like, well, I've been working on this chakra for 5 years, so I'm good. Like,
Right.
that beautiful symphony of just like each organ system impacts the other. It's an amazing,
It is.
just,
It's an amazing framework. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and it's you spiral back to different things. There's layers to the
Oh,
work. You might
yeah.
do a lot of work at one point or navel work for boundaries, but then you're in a new situation in your life that challenges it in a new way,
Yeah.
that's triggering you in ways that you weren't in the past, and you need to circle back to working more explicitly there. So that's why it does provide a great framework.
So amazing. So you gave us, this is literally me being curious.
Mhm.
You gave us an idea of an exercise. Um, Similar exercise, if it's, say somebody said, was thinking, okay, actually, you know what? I do think I need to start with throat, and I'm going to incorporate the foundation too. I mean, do you always, how do you have people approach?
Yeah. Heart and root. I'm very comfortable with someone just starting to work with those on their own. Heart would be the other one that I would often start with, if not root. And
Okay.
simply, what I'm often focusing on with heart is receiving. So, very simple visualization of just light pouring in from every direction and trying to just imagine you're receiving an infinite amount of it into the heart. And then we might do affirmations around self-worth or balance, or depending on what someone
What they
is
need.
working.
Yeah.
So those root and heart, I'm like, you can just work with on your own. If someone is like, oh, I resonate the most with needing to do throat chakra work, I'm going to pair that with either heart or root.
Okay.
Just in isolation, maybe navel if it's kind of boundary. Just in isolation, the other chakras usually I'm going to want to pair them with something else if it's the first one we're working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I knew I had to ask the question. So
Yeah.
there we go. That's why.
Yeah. Good, good. Yeah.
Yeah. It is amazing. And it's interesting because you mentioned, working with people that are going through cancer treatment, and to me that still falls under this same umbrella.
Hmm.
It's just a different kind of autoimmune,
Hmm.
and so I know that you're, again, you work with all of it, and it sounds like you see the same thing of you mentioned layers. I always say I have to find a more, just a more beautiful way to, I always am calling us onions, right? Because it is
Yeah, no,
true.
I do love the idea of onions. Yes. There isn't anything else like it. It
It's
really.
just, I'm friendly with a doc who does a lot of work around trauma with people, and she uses spiral staircase, and I'm like, it's really beautiful, but I still keep coming back to onion.
Yeah,
Like,
I like onion because
um,
it's round, the spiral staircase.
yeah,
This feels more like the center, like you're getting
yeah, like
closer to the
deeper.
center. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so for anybody listening that's like, oh yeah, I've done that work, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
that's the other thing. And just like I mentioned my practice, isn't what it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's changing with what I need. And some people, I wake up in the morning and it's like, what do I need today? But like there is a practice. It's not like, oh, I need to run to work. I'm
Yeah.
going to do whatever that is. But that's the beauty, is like we can reach healing that feels really good. And then, like you said, the new trigger, the new situation, or the different kind of response, but maybe it's still not the response, that you would hope would be your default, creates new opportunity for growth.
Yeah, it's like you're learning to surf bigger waves. You've learned to surf
Yeah.
this size of waves. Then a situation or someone comes along in your life that throws a much bigger wave at you. And you're like, oh, I thought I knew how to surf that high,
Yeah.
but I need to do a little more work. That one threw me,
Uh,
and that's how life is.
it absolutely is. It is just full of opportunity. And again, thank goodness, because I firmly believe that when we're done growing, we're done,
Yeah.
with this lifetime. And so, sometimes it doesn't feel great in the moment, but it really is a genuine, beautiful opportunity for us to learn to continue to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I just had this conversation with somebody this week too, a client. Um, you know, the beautiful thing is when you're growing, you can't be contracting.
Yeah.
So, and I do think so much of the work you do, you're working with, very similar population that I am, and the closed off, protected, contracted, and oh my gosh, when you just start to open up. So I can see, sometimes it's easier. I shouldn't say easier. Working with the heart space first feels important sometimes. I know.
Yeah, and for what I find sometimes with people with sexual trauma, because I do work with a lot of sexual trauma survivors in
Mhm.
particular, lower body focus just is difficult for them. So it
Yeah.
depends if someone's starting. So the heart is always a great place to start.
Yeah. And I love that you clarified, it's about receiving,
Yeah.
because that's the part that, especially, at least the women I tend to work with,
Yep.
almost have to relearn, or, even just,
Very hard time with. Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we're just like opening up these like receptor channels that have been kind of blocked off, just
Yeah.
imagine like opening up,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
receive so much more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Allowing.
Ah, so amazing. So share, first of all, where is the best place for listeners to learn more about you? And then I'm going to ask a few more questions about how you work with people. But
Sure.
where's the
Yeah.
best place
So,
to find you for people that are, because I fall into this category. I listen on the go, and I'm not a great like check the show notes person.
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my website is enlightenedenergetics.com, enlightened energetics. And then I'm on both Facebook and Instagram as Chakra Empowerment, which is the name of my book, Chakra Empowerment for Women, which you'll find linked to in all of those places. So enlightened energetics or chakra empowerment, if you Google that, you're going to end up one of those places.
and if you're not already, like, you don't have to be steeped in woo woo.
Yeah.
But you really, like, I love how you deliver, and share your knowledge with people. So it's like it's too soon to start for people to, don't
Yeah, I
be
mean, really,
afraid
yeah.
of, yeah,
Yeah, you
really.
don't have to go believing, oh yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
believe in this. I was like, no,
Yeah.
just try out some of these things and see what you feel. That's it.
Yeah. Amazing. So good. So we're at the point of the conversation where people are leaning in because they know I'm going to ask you the hardest question,
Oh,
which is, what is one step that listeners can take starting today to improve I'm just going to say blank, fill in the blank.
I'm going to go back to what we talked about with the root chakra, and I'm going to say once a day while you're brushing your teeth, focus on the feeling of your feet on the ground and bring your mind all the way down to your tailbone. And that's it. Just see if you can do that the entire time you're brushing your teeth and see what you begin to notice. Is it hard for you to bring your awareness down? Do you feel connected to your feet and your tailbone? That's it. Start there.
Ah, I love it. See, it wasn't hard. I was like, oh, she'll know because she'll just go with. She will know. Well, I'm so grateful for the work that you're putting out in the world, and really there is. It's not even an overlap. I mean, it's all of us need healing and continue to need to work on healing. And the more healed we are, the bigger, better contribution we can make. And so I love that you just are so relatable, and really, really appreciate the wisdom that you're sharing and appreciate you giving your time for us so that listeners could learn with you and from you as well.
Well, thank you, Julie. It's been a pleasure. And I more and more as I move forward in life as well, like I just so honor everyone that is doing work to help people. We look at the numbers, the research, the number of people that are suffering in different ways. And there are all different modalities, as you said, different combinations of things work for different people. So I just so honor you doing this work as well. And then in addition to that, sharing these other modalities through your podcast. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. For everyone listening, remember you can actually get those show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And I'll see you next week. And do the practice.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.